So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged, and to the end of an era, because come hell or high water, this is going to be the last battle on patch 0.96 that I'm going to show. So, patch 0.97 will be upon us at some point after this battle comes out. It might already be out, to be honest, as on the day that this battle is posted up on YouTube, to be honest. I don't know exactly when the release date is going to be, but I do know that it is going to be soon, and this is going to be the last battle on 0.96 that I am going to be showing. I did actually show Moria not so long ago, and I'm not really a huge fan of showing the same map twice in a row, but when it comes to sort of bidding goodbye to patch 0.96, which has been around for quite some time at this point, had to be a big siege, had to be an 8-player siege, and Moria, you know, this is the only one that I actually had in the pipeline, and also according to the player itself, it is going to be a good time to watch as well. So, this one was sent to me, I believe, by, yeah, I think it was Captain Gervais, I think. So that's good to know. So he's going to be playing as the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm on their home turf. I don't believe this is this isn't a lore-friendly battle, because it's going to be Khazad-dûm, Dale, who you can certainly see working together, but also we have Isengard defending Moria, so that's interesting. We'll go through the attackers first of all, though, because it's going to be easier to sort of go through their armies, and then we'll go through the defensive positions as well. So we'll start off with Y2K86, who's playing as the Witch Realm of Angmar. So you can see at the front here he's got some Orc fellas. Cheap Axemen, obviously you know what you're going to get with them. They're very, very easy to kill, but they can do a decent amount of damage to armoured units before they fall by the wayside. Got some upgraded Witch Realm Pikemen as well, which also is going to be a useful unit for the attackers to have, because it means that they can back up their attack, they can get the phalanx down and sort of have an anchor to their advance. Blackwatch Legion as well. Angmar in general are obviously very good on the attacks, they have a lot of aggressive tools. Blackwatch Legion of course can push through lines. We also have the Trolls of Angmar with their big shields, as well as the Trolls of Good and Bad on the other side, so both of the stronger Trolls that Angmar has available to them. Snarger pushing up the ramp, again they're just fodder, so pushing them up first makes a good deal of sense. Excuse me. Guardians of Khazad-dûm as well, also upgraded, so he's trying to upgrade what troops he has. He's got the Blackwatch Legion, the mighty Witch Realm Hammerguard as well, and then back here of course another very devastating unit, the Witchers. They can either be used to devastating effect to give the attackers a much easier time of it, or they can be a complete waste of money. We'll see what they will be in this battle. Then we have a very, very densely packed cluster of troops here. The Gandhi Berserk, who's playing as Khan, so we can see there's a lot of Nurads, both footmen and halberds, a lot of the basic nomadic units as well, axemen, standard infantry. Actually some knights as well, the Variag Cataphracts. It's interesting to bring a unit of knights on a map like Moria. Most siege battles, it could be worth bringing some cavalry on the attack, because it means that as soon as you're in the settlement you can start running things down. But Moria is so choke pointy that I don't think the Variag Cataphracts are going to be much use, especially seeing as all of the factions that are on the defence have got very good anti-cavalry options, especially Khazad and Isengard. Then we have the Vengeful one, who's been in quite a few replays recently as well. He's playing as Rudauer, so the Rudauer Swordsman over here, a very savage evil men faction, one of my favourites to play actually. A couple of units of Attenmore's Troll Hunters with their javelins, going to be very useful. A couple of units of Franadine Berserkers with their axe throwing, which is going to also be very useful. The last time we'll see the axe throwers have armour piercing will be this battle as well. A couple more units, actually no, just one unit of Rudauer Swordsmen, some Rudauer Clansmen, so just some spears with a big shield. Also have some Witch Realm Enslavers, so that's more AP coming their way. Rudauer Clansmen, some Black Wolves, which are of course very similar to the Uruk-hai Berserkers in the fact that they're very poor in terms of defensive skill and armor. They do have multiple HP and they have a lot of attack as well as being armor piercing, and some Rudauer Marksmen. There's probably some hidden units around here as well. Another unit over here we have Mordor, so far it has been all evil factions on the attack. I wonder in the distance, nope, Erebor on the attack. So I guess the dwarves are sort of arguing over Moria, and they've all hired a bunch of people to help them fight over it. So we have the Steward of Dale, who has been in tons of battle replays lately, so I can only thank him for being a part of them. Mordor, so Orc fodder of course, very cheap, well I say very cheap, very free, so you're going to see Orc fodder in basically every Mordor army, because you may as well bring them. Minas Morgul chosen as well, so some heavy spears, very survivable, some more Orc fodder. Some Orc archers as well, just to give them a bit of a ranged presence. Orc javelins, very good for dealing armor piercing damage for a very small amount of money. Orc maulers as well, kind of similar, only a melee variant. You know, obviously they are very cheap, they are very easy to kill in melee as well. Sauron's Will, we have the Black Legion of Barad-dûr on both sides, the Olag-hai as well, so again Mordor very much focused around their elite units. You know, they have a lot of very cheap fodder, and then their real strength comes from their really high tier stuff. And back here we have 2 units that typify that, including the Olag-hai actually, so 3. The Nazgul, very, very difficult to kill when they're in and amongst all of their Orc underlings. and of course, one of the strongest heavy swordsmen in the game, the upgraded Temple Executioners. And then finally over here, as said previously, we have Thrain, who's going to be playing as the Dwarves of Erebor. He's got some iron-foot crossbows, so clearly they want the Mines of Moria for themselves. Willing to work with Sauron to get it as well. Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin on here on the front line as well, so they're a very, very strong unit, of course. And Erebor's infantry may not be quite up to the same level as Khazad-dûm's, but I mean, Khazad-dûm won't be able to slaughter anything with impunity, considering Erebor can somewhat stand up to them. Ironfoot Warriors as well, so a good standard unit of Dwarven infantry, of course, which is of higher quality than most other factions' units of a similar type. Ironfoot Warriors, we have Erebor Legionaries on the side, backed up by some Axe Guard. In the middle we have some Ironfoot Pikes, we have a Dwarven Catapult. Back here we have a unit which could be so devastating in a battle like this, the Blackrock Engineers with their body-piercing bolts. And then over here we have another unit of Ironfoot Crossbows. So, moving into the settlement, so actually not deploying towards the gate here, actually deploying just across the bridge. We have all of the defensive factions, which we already know who they are. So we have the upgraded Bardian Marksman, Hazrama playing as Dale, and Frodo playing as Isengard, some Dunlending Berserkers, some armor-piercing Mare, Blackshot Dragon Slayers, and armor-piercing Archer. Morroquendi Bows, a heavy Elven Archer that Dale have access to. Morroquendi Pikes as well, a very nice pike unit that Dale have access to. The Morroquendi are so expensive though that Dale tend to be quite sparing with when they bring them, but this is a good battle in which to bring them, because of course Moria are very defensive. It's less likely that they're going to be focused down like they could be on a field battle. Girian's Paladins, of course, are really strong, multiple HP shock unit, much like the Witchram Hammer Guard. Some Dalian Spearmen with the armor upgrade, I believe the sort of the golden or sort of the brass effect on their chest plates means that they have had their armor upgraded. Elves of Escaroth, more Dalian Spearmen, Barding Herd, so it looks as though Dale are taking up the slack. Over on this side, Morroquendi Pikes and Dalian Spearmen. Hopping over up onto the higher level, we see Khazad-dûm have taken up a position with some Snaga Skirmishers backing them up. First Legion and Hammers on the front line, Guards of Khazad-dûm and Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. Got some 3rd Legion infantry as well, and then also some Uruk-hai crossbows, so still a very difficult position to take. And then over here, immediately, they're going to be defending just in from the gate, the first main hall. We have Frodo setting up a lot of his Uruk-hai pikemen, some Uruk-hai, no, that is just Uruk-hai pikemen, double layered, so we've got some Trolls of the White Hand as well, so we could have a kaiju battle between the Trolls here. Uruk-hai infantry and pikes again, more Uruk-hai infantry upgraded, Snaga Skirmishers, some more Dunlending Berserkers, and then backed up by the solidity of the Dwarven infantry as well. Sons of the Fallen, 1st Legion pikes, 4th Legion shield guard, all of the good stuff, holding the line. Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm as well, we've got some upgraded Warriors of Khazad-dûm back here, more Orc Hunters, some more Hammers of Gundabad, Uruk-hai crossbows, and then back here we have the elites, so Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, Dalian Royal Guard, a Dalian Catapult, Guards of Khazad-dûm and Mithril Guard, and just in behind this alcove over here we have the Guards 4th Tank Saruman, and then a couple of units actually of Uruk-hai Berserkers. I'm not seeing the Nazkai anywhere, but we also have another cluster of troops here at the back, some 3rd Legion, some more, there are the Nazkai, some Elves of Escaroth, and also some more Trolls of the White Hand, as well as another cluster of Dalian troops over there made up of Barding Herd, and another unit of Girian's Paladins. So, you know, the 3 armies that are on the defence do have the appropriate level of strength here. They've got a lot of elites. Will it be enough for them to weather the storm, though? We shall see. I will actually make a little cut while the attackers do their thing, because often the attackers do tend to wait a little bit until they're all grouped up. So the enemies start to pour into Moria, and actually the defenders have moved forward to meet them, and you can see that all of Dale, Isengard, and some of the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm are all working in tandem to start to defend this outer wall. You can see that some of those projectiles as well are from the Blackshot Dragon Slayers. You can see the standard arrows, and then you can see the black arrows of the Blackshot Dragon Slayers, and immediately the Ironfoot Warriors thinking better of charging in here. Although, to be fair, if it's Dunlending Berserkers, like a cheap unit of Axemen like this, yes, the AP will do damage to the Ironfoot Warriors, but the Dunlending Berserkers are so bad at keeping themselves alive that the Ironfoot Warriors will probably still be enough to win that fight. But it's a very different story when the upgraded 3rd Legion infantry are coming in, because they are of higher quality than the Ironfoot Warriors. Ironfoot Warriors, of course, basically are very similar to the Warriors of Khazad-dûm, whereas the 3rd Legion infantry are a cut above that, upgraded more in line with the Erebor Legionaries. Meanwhile, on the other side, still a little bit reluctant to maybe move into the settlements over here, even though they've all bunched up now. Still waiting for Rudauer to make their way over, I suppose. But Khand are still over here in a big old blob. They're just moving as one big amorphous entity. We'll see if that continues throughout the battle. But yeah, over here obviously 3 armies means the defenders are going to have to put more work in to hold back 3 whole armies rather than 2. But I would say over here, on this side, as I find myself on top of Moria, just having a look, Erebor and Mordor together can be a very potent combination just because they're 2 factions with a lot of very nasty units. You would say that overall in terms of elites, this side would actually be more worrisome for the defenders, although you would also say that Angmar can also count themselves in and amongst that number as well. The Witches, all on their own, are a unit that's sort of worth being feared, worth being scared of. So they do need to keep a watch for that, but overall, on the other side it'll be more about quantity, on this side it'll be a little bit more about quality. You can see here the Orc Fodder are coming in, but the Orc Javelins are trying to position themselves to batter down the 3rd Legion infantry, but the 3rd Legion are holding their ground, going toe-to-toe with the Ironfoot Warriors, a ton of Orcs just streaming past. Although I would suggest the Orc Fodder should probably just work on... I mean, this unit of 3rd Legion is a little bit isolated at this point. You can see a counter-charge coming from the Dunlending Berserkers, some support coming in from the Arrows as well. And the Dunlending Berserkers should be able to fairly easily defeat the Orc Fodder, because the Orc Fodder is so bad, especially with a bit of range support. If some Ironfoot Warriors come forward though, it could be a very different story, but I'm actually surprised the Orc Fodder didn't try to completely surround the 3rd Legion infantry. They were a little bit isolated. It's a good opportunity to kill off an entire unit very early on. Again, these are small victories and losses that happen at this stage of the battle in a siege. But even so, if you're the attackers, if you can take away the manpower of the defenders, it will get more and more difficult for them to do much of anything as the battle goes along. More Ironfoot Warriors streaming in. I'm actually surprised that Erebor are the ones that are taking the initial brunt of most of these casualties. Yes, there's some Orc Javelins and Orc Fodder coming in here as well, but you know, Mordor have got by far and away the more disposable units. Not that this is a bad thing, of course, because it does mean that, you know, the Ironfoot Warriors will be able to stand up to this sort of punishment much more easily than something like the Orc Maulers would be able to do. Time and time again you see the attackers make the same mistakes where they try to send in their weak units all on their own and then they don't really make much of an impact and they've lost them for basically no gain. Ironfoot Warriors will be able to make some gains. You can actually see already the Dunlending Berserkers pretty battered and bruised because the advance of the Ironfoot Warriors supporting the Orc Fodder actually working pretty well in tandem. Now the frontline fight begins. Colliding with the Dalian Phalanx, Dalian Spearmen and Barding Herd, a very nice combination this of course. Orc Fodder won't be able to make too much of an impact, and even with Ironfoot Warriors, the Barding Herd very well suited to fight a unit like that. Good to see though that the Steward of Dale is using his Orc Javelins to try to kill off the 3rd Legion infantry because they are wide open to be attacked. And actually the Ironfoot Warriors are starting to really struggle. I mean, it does go to show the gulf in quality between a unit of upgraded 3rd Legion infantry and just a basic unit of Ironfoot Warriors. Unupgraded. Meanwhile, looks as though we are going to get some action on this side as well. Some 4th Legion Shield Guard were threatening to move forward. Snaga Skirmishers, I think we're thinking about throwing a volley there, but Rudar are the ones that are taking point in this engagement. So Rudar Clansmen, Snaga Stalkers, the Rudar Marchmen also filtering in here. One of the good things about these 3 factions on the defence though is that they are all pretty heavily armoured. They all have good defensive values, a lot of shields going on as well, so it's not as if these basic units of Rudar Marchmen will be able to do tons and tons of damage across the entirety of the army like they would potentially if it were Linden or Mirkwood on the defence. Very, very damaging they would be, but also much easier targets for stuff like cheap archers to go after. That was a volley from crossbows though, and here comes the Dalian Catapult as well, getting a nice hit there right into the heart of some of these units. You could make the argument though that these units are not really worth going after with the catapult. Rudar Clansmen actually, in response to getting hit by the catapult, they're going to more densely pack themselves together in shield wall, which basically means if a catapult hits it, that's 3/4 of the unit gone. The Barrow-wights are also shambling their way into position. Oh, that catapult's getting very close to the Rudar Clansmen. A grazing hit at best into the Snaga Stalkers. But over on this side, the attackers are starting to make their presence felt, shambling into the settlement. But they really don't want to get involved in a skirmish fight, I don't think. I mean, they want to be attacking at the same time their archers are doing the damage, because if they just sit here, they're inviting this sort of thing to happen. Like, that catapult is going to hit eventually and it's going to devastate them. And also the catapult absolutely should be going after the Barrow-wights. It's one of the best ways to deal with the slightly overpowered Barrow-wights, you have to say, in 0.96. Because, you know, it doesn't matter how many HP you have, if a catapult hits you, you're going to die instantly. Like so. And they are getting grilled. Actually, I do think if you do have a huge amount of hit points, like I'm talking like hundreds, you can survive a catapult shot, but obviously that's never going to be too much of a problem in Reforged. Still, this front line holds. The Dalians holding up well to this assault so far. Some Orc Maulers joining in the fun as well. You can actually see that that unit of 3rd Legion did rout in the end, but this is, of course, the armies of Mordor and Erebor now coming forward in far greater numbers, just overwhelming the 3rd Legion, as they probably should have done slightly sooner. Orc Archers also starting to return fire into the ranks of Dalian Archers and Morroquendi Archers. Some Bardian Marksmen down there as well. The Dunlending Berserkers just biding their time. Snaga Skirmishers also using their Javelins, throwing over the heads of the Dalian front line, who's holding up very well still, to be fair. All of these ranged units offering their support, probably helping out a great deal though, as the Dalian Spearmen and the Barding Herd hold the line against this numerically superior force that's coming at them. There's also some Axe Guard of Erebor charging their way in as well, so some pretty serious units on the way forward. You can see the Dunlending Berserkers rejoining the front line, seeing that there is a bit of a gap forming. They're going to try and plug it with their bodies. And the Dunlending Berserkers, that AP will be of great help, of course. Most of the attackers coming forward will appear to be dwarves, so those large axes that they wield will be of great use. Meanwhile, coming across here, some fire arrows coming in. The Barrow-wights actually turning around and retreating out of the settlement. Again, I'm not really sure how the attackers intend to do things over here. The Trollshaw axe throwers are coming forward, but there's no way whatsoever that they're going to win a skirmish fight here. And actually the Attenmore's Trollhunters are coming in. Like, the best way you can use Rudauer javelins and axe throws is to engage with the enemy, get a big old mess of an infantry fight going on, and then throwing your javelins into the blob of enemies as they're attacking your infantry. Trying to use them in this context is not really going to work out too well for Rudauer, I don't think. Rudauer Clansmen and Snaga Stalkers are coming in now, but without serious support, without the Barrow-wights, because the Barrow-wights left the settlement with their tails between their legs in the face of that catapult, immediately you can see these units are going to rout, because they immediately got charged by Uruk-hai Infantry, 4th Legion Shield Guard, units of far greater quality than themselves, and they've already taken hits from catapults and crossbows and archers. The Snaga are also routing into the enemy, so that means they're going to get butchered en masse by the upgraded Uruk-hai. So an ill-advised assault forward, and you can see now the Barrow-wights have turned back around, but they're so slow that they can't react quickly enough, and the Rudauer Clansmen, not long for this world. This is good news for the defenders. The early part of this battle has gone well for them, but of course it does need to. They are outnumbered pretty horrendously, so they are going to need more mistakes like this from the attackers. But so far no mistakes by the defenders, which is good. Mistakes from the defenders, as I've always said, tend to get amplified when they're outnumbered. Catapults still moving in. I mean, you could say at this point that the catapults should just be going after the Barrow-wights. Another very nice hit into the Barrow-wights there, actually. The best use of the catapult, I mean, even better, arguably, than shooting into a big dense blob of infantry, because the catapult can kill off the Barrow-wights in a way that really no other kind of unit can, other than other artillery. The 2nd unit of Barrow-wights also coming forward as well. More Barrow-wights dying off there. Trollshaw axe throwers have already taken some fairly substantial losses from archers, again going after the right targets here, the defenders. Coming forward also some Orc Fellers, another unit which is not great under arrow fire, and they're also going to charge past the Barrow-wights. Barrow-wights, of course, so slow. A very nice hit there, right into the heart of all those units, getting Barrow-wights, archers, Orc Maulers, the works. Trying to charge in here, but again, the Orc Fellers, I called them Orc Maulers just then, didn't I? They're getting way too far ahead of themselves. They're trying to push through and go after the Snaga Skirmishers, but you stand to lose more than your gain. That was a huge amount of friendly fire, actually, by the looks of things. So that's a bit unfortunate. A ton of Uruk-hai infantry. Forward come the trolls as well, so I mean the attackers at this point are starting to get a little bit more serious about their efforts over here. Meanwhile, so if the attackers gotten more serious over here, they've managed to just barge the Dalian front line out of the way with the liberal application of some slightly scarier units, the Olag-hai proving too much for the Dalian front line, clearly. And now the Uruk-hai crossbows are trying to run for the hills. The Nazgul were leading the way as well, so this is most certainly... Looked like they were going to try and sort of take their time, be a little bit more cautious about it initially, the attackers, but that has changed pretty dramatically. All of a sudden the attackers now being extremely aggressive. We come over here, once again, another catapult hit, so now Khand are starting to filter in some nomadic axemen. that unit of 4th Legion. I think what they're trying to do is just sort of stand in the way so the catapult can shoot into the blob, but that's not going to last too long because the trolls are coming forward. So now this will be a bit of a test of the defenders, because this is a really large scale assault now. Having said that, the attackers really need to start getting their skates on, because that catapult has already done tons and tons of damage on very important targets, but the trolls are in here. They're in and amongst the archers, so they're going to be able to cut their way through them. I also noticed the trolls of Gundabad were over here, and indeed we are going to get a bit of a kaiju battle. The trolls of the White Hand and the trolls of Gundabad going at it, but the trolls of Gundabad have already had to charge through a ton of units, so they're already looking pretty damaged. And the trolls of the White Hand are the stronger of the two anyway. Going about their business there. Trolls trying to get out of there, but it's already going to be far too late for them. They're still going after the Snaga. Like, the attackers really want these Snaga skirmishers dead, but they're not. I mean, they are a very useful tool, but they're not that dangerous. They've already sacrificed a great deal to even get to them. You can see now that crossbows, arrows just flying into the attackers as they move forward, but this is good for the attackers ultimately. They are now forward in such great numbers that they could make some very nice gaps in the enemy positions. You can also see that the Sons of the Fallen and the 1st Legion pikes getting a bit of friendly fire. That Dalian catapult has done a lot of good work, but it threatens to undo that if it causes their front line to break by shooting them in the back. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers trying to kill the enemies as they move forward. The Trolls of Angmar have also effectively been killed. Nurad Footmen breaking as well. And the attacks are coming forward here. They're being super aggressive, but also a lot of their troops are ending up just routing. They're trying to push too far through the enemy lines. I can only assume they're trying to go after all the javelins, crossbows and archers the defenders have, but they're losing so much by doing that. There are still Barrow-wights on the front line, which is good for them. The Trolls of the White Hand just wading in. I mean, it's utter bedlam over here. Isengard tend to blend in with the forces of Angmar, so it's kind of difficult to see where the front line is, but you can see that it is kind of here. A banana shape in favour of the defenders. Not only that, there's also the trolls. There's one troll of Angmar still alive in here as well. Those 4th Legion Shield Guard that were sort of trying to block the enemy's advance are technically still alive, which is unbelievable when you think about it. Ferodrum Javelins throwing their payload. I mean, this is... now that is a bit of a game changer. The Witches coming forward perfectly. Just absolutely sizzling that wing of the defence, going through a whole bunch of 1st Legion pikes, Sons of the Fallen, getting a bunch of the Angmar forces in there as well. So the Witches, when things get a bit chaotic like this, it is easy to lose track of the Witches. They're such a small unit, and they do blend in, especially when there's a lot of black units on the field. And now the Witches, I think they're going to pull out. Their work already done for now. They're going to save a bit of ammunition for later. A lot of damage done there, though. Well, what's going on over here? So yeah, you can see the Steward of Dale is starting to attack this area, but it's unlikely that they're going to make too many inroads for now. Minas Morgul Chosen and Orc Maulers just being held in place by guards of Khazad-dûm and 1st Legion pikes. Very, very tricky to bring those two down, as well as also being shot in the back by the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. So far this Dwarven front line still very much in effect. Meanwhile, Erebor pushing forwards, and they're into the pillared hall over here. Interestingly enough, though, this is a very strange choice to make. I mean, charging head-on into pikes when you have the option of not doing that. You could have just gone through the middle. Instead, they're choosing to play into Dale's hands, rather, by just sort of engaging Morroquendi pikes in the front, and you can do nothing worse to an Elven pike than just engage them from the front, because Elven pikes, they tend to be pretty damaging. You know, by pike standards, no pikes, well, I say no pikes, only the highest tier pikes can do damage quickly, and the Morroquendi pikes can count themselves amongst that number. And you can see that, yeah, the dwarves are already starting to fall away pretty quickly. And again, they're sort of doing the same thing on the other side. This unit of Morroquendi pikes will also be backed up by Dalian spears as well. They are going to move through the middle now, though, so maybe dragging their heels a little bit there, the dwarves, but they are going to do the right thing in the end. But they're also going to have to deal with a counter-attacking unit of Trolls of the White Hand. There's still some Bardian Marksmen, Earls of Escaroth, and more Dalian Spearmen down here as well, so I don't know. I mean, I think that those pikemen are going to have a field day while the rest of the Dalian army holds this Dwarven attack from the Erebor legionaries in place. Meanwhile, over on this side, Still a very brutal assault. It's still kind of difficult to see where the front line is, but mostly what's left at this point are Dwarven units. There are still a few Uruk-hai in here as well. A few crossbows joining the fray. Some Khazad-dûm reclaimers coming in here also. But a really, really savage battle that's happening here. I can only imagine how quickly the death toll racked up over here. Some sizzling corpses as well. I wonder if that means that the witches have come forward again. I don't think so. But between the witches, the catapults, the crossbows, the javelins, the trolls, all really, really high damage units that get their killing done very, very quickly. Some Uruk-hai infantry still over here. The Barrow-wights, of course, still tanking damage on the front line now that the catapult isn't targeting them. They're free to do their thing. Snaga skirmishers, Uruk-hai berserkers moving forward as well. A lot of resources from both sides have been committed to this fight over here. Khand are also sending forward their Brotherhood of the Axe now. The Witch Realm Hammer Guard are in there. So the attackers, they mean business. I mean, between the Witch Realm Hammer Guard and the Brotherhood of the Axe, the Uruk-hai infantry and the Uruk-hai units in general that are on the front line are in pretty serious trouble, because that's a lot of AP and a lot of high quality AP as well. Another unit of Rudar clansmen also joining the front line. The Ferodrim javelins are in here throwing their payload. As soon as they're out of ammunition, they make a pretty good multiple HP shock unit as well. Armour piercing with those war clubs as they get stuck in the roof once again. Here are the Erebor legionaries trying to go toe to toe with the trolls and with the Earls. You can actually see when you do have a high quality unit of infantry, the trolls do tend to struggle a little bit, because the trolls of the White Hand are a very, very strong troll unit, one of the strongest, arguably the strongest. I'd say the Uruk-hai are a little bit stronger, but Earls of Escroth now getting overwhelmed. So for the defenders, actually, maybe worth being a little bit worried. I mean, the Morroquendi pikes are still doing their thing. You can see the Ironfoot pikes are now moving in as well. What's happening up here? Mordor trying to force their way through, but I mean, this is... yeah. Khazad-dûm and Dale trying to hold down this front line and succeeding. Mordor, I think, are actually running out of steam a little bit here. I don't know whether the Nazgul are on the front line or not. If they have been on this front line, then it's possible they're already dead, actually, because I mean, there were some serious units over here. The Guards of Khazad-dûm, no slouches, and then they're backed up by a lot of good units as well, but I kind of doubt the Nazgul would have been sent into the meat grinder when Khazad-dûm reclaimers were right there. I'd imagine they're back down there with the Shadow Guard and the Temple Executioners. Here come the Black Legion of Barad-dûr, so maybe they're going to try and push their way through now. The Saurons will also on the front line. They're going to try and push their way through, but I mean, this defence is thick enough where it might not work. The Black Legion of Barad-dûr are going to take a lot of damage on the way through, and they're going to need to follow this push up with more infantry, and I don't think they have more infantry. Their reinforcements are too far away, so I mean, they may very well be able to push their way through, but I don't think they're going to be able to make this stick. So Mordor are struggling. Erebor seem to be having the most luck of all the attackers so far. That there, Brotherhood Shadowblades, throwing their throwing knives into the defensive positions. Eventually, the attackers should break through here, but the question is whether they've taken losses to the extent where they can't actually then go on to take the town centre. So nomadic infantry here, finally gutting the Snaga skirmishers, which for some reason have been the holy grail for the attackers so far. They've been desperate to kill the Snaga skirmishers, and at this point the defenders don't have anything that can stop the nomadic infantry from running roughshod over the back lines. You can see here as well the Brotherhood of the Axe doing their thing, finishing off the Uruk-hai. The Barrow-wights are in there as well. We can see the Witch Realm Hammer Guard smashing dwarves and Uruk-hai for fun. Guards of Orthanc came forward as well, but they're being focused down by thrown axes. Attenmore's Troll Hunters coming forward as well, Witch Realm Pikemen. The Naz-kai are on the front line as well though, so a lot of elite units have been committed forward, like really a lot. Such a brutal fight that's happened over here. But here come the Witchers once again. Did they just get a bunch of friendly fire? That wasn't a particularly devastating shot. We have to say the Witchers were the turning point here, because they managed to basically sizzle a whole wing of that Dwarven front line. including a whole bunch of 1st Legion, Sons of the Fallen, probably some 3rd Legion were in there as well. Very, very nice hit. And ever since then, the attackers have had the edge over here. The Black Walls are now coming forward as well. Very good choice now that most of the archers have been dealt with. The Brotherhood Shadow Blades are in behind the enemy lines as well. Yeah, this is going to be the end. I mean, Khazad-dûm Reclaimers coming back down, but it's going to take more than 30 Khazad-dûm Reclaimers to save that front line now. Meanwhile, over here, Earls of Escaroth turning this fight around. The Morroquendi Pikes still holding on. The Ironfoot Pikes no match for the Elves, especially when they're backed up by some spears. The Ironfoot Crossbows trying to kill off the Earls quickly, but the Earls of Escaroth have done very, very well actually on this front line. But I would suggest that now with the Dragon Slayers here, the Dragon Slayers are going to just rip through the Dalian Spearmen. And that's not going to be good for them. Dwarves on the front line as well, Morroquendi Pikes still holding them here, Arable Legionaries. So you can see the Pikes still holding on very resolutely. But here in the middle, the Dwarves will win this eventually. Crossbow support, Dragon Slayers of Arid Mithra, and the Earls of Escaroth are good, but not that good. Not as good as the finest units that Erebor can muster on the front line. The Orc Archers trying to shoot at point blank. But you'd have to say that Mordor are really struggling here. They have been turned back in a big way by the defenders. They're going to move forward with the Númenórean Shadow Guard, the Temple Executioners. Maybe the Nazgûl did die. Maybe they were committed forward too soon. You can see the dead trolls with their derpy faces. Not as derpy as the Trolls of the White Hand, of course, but there goes the Númenórean Shadow Guard. They're getting a ton of body piercing through the lines of the enemy. That's a perfect shot for them as well. So at this point the defenders will need to respond to this. They'll need to kill this off quickly, but with the Temple Executioners on the front line, I don't think they'll be able to kill them off quickly. You can see there the Blacklock Engineers. So I think, actually, the defenders are in trouble now, I think, because you can tell over here they're basically in full retreat. The Dalian Royal Guard are going to try and pull back as well. The Morroquendi Bows pulling out their blades, but also they are going to try to retreat also. The Catapult Crew are going to try and get in the way of the Witch Realm Hammer Guard. They won't last very long at all, but I mean, there's not much of the attackers left, to be fair. At least in comparison to what there was. The Guards of Khazad-dûm, only 17 of them left, are still holding on for dear life. Still some Uruk-hai Berserkers down here as well. A bit stretched actually now, the attackers. But they are going to be victorious. The defenders at this point though, they're in trouble because they're losing against Erebor in the Pillared Hall. They've lost against the attackers over here in the large, don't really know what to call this, the hall with 2 bridges. The only area where the defenders were winning noticeably was over here against Mordor, but even so, with the addition of those Shadow Guard, Mordor will still lose over here, I'm sure, but those Shadow Guard are going to do such a high amount of damage, I think. They've got the perfect shot, still. That will change as they push forward, of course, the Dwarves and Dale. It's going to be difficult to come back from there. More or less at the halfway point here, though. And it is dead even, 81% to 81%, so most of the forces that were deployed at the start of the battle are already gone. There go the Blacklock Engineers as well. Not the best shot for them, but they're still just tearing the Morroquendi Pikes apart. So yeah, Erebor going to be victorious over here, although I have to give the Earls credit. They've done some really good work here. They're going to fall away now, of course, but they've gotten into the Ironfoot Crossbowmen. This will be their final stand, however. It's going to be difficult for the defenders. I mean, they should still have some elites back in the town centre, which is good news for them, because it's still dead even, of course. The Mithril Guard going to be very important. They've still got some Elven units as well. Still got some Nazkai. Girian's Paladins, 2 units of Nazkai. Dalian Royal Guard, Black Shots, 2 units of Girian's Paladins as well. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of the units the defenders have left are very strong, but they are outnumbered, and also, rather worryingly for them, I don't see a great deal of ranged power from them. If the attackers still have javelins, if they still have the Black Locks, if they still have those Mordor Rangers, it could be pretty bad for them. The Uruk-hai Berserkers making their final stand against a ton of really strong units actually. Granadine Berserkers, Black Walls, and Witch Realm Hammer Guard. Forward come the Nurad Halberds as well. Just to pour salt into the wounds, getting those G Halberds down into their phalanx. That's going to be the end of the Uruk-hai Berserkers. The Barrow-wight's going to shamble off as well. Brotherhood of the Axe doing their bit on the front line. Granadine Rangers, that's not a sight the defenders will want to see come towards the town centre either, as well as some upgraded Variag Bowmen. So yeah, the attackers do still have a good amount of range power, perhaps too much range power. Perhaps they don't have enough infantry to withstand an assault by, you know, the very elite units that the defenders have left still. Morikwendi bows, no slouches in melee either. What have we got here? Still some Earls of Escroft, and still these pikes are actually still alive. Although I would think that's probably going to change pretty quickly as the Blacklock Engineers start to tee off into them. There's still those Dragon Slayers of Eredmithra as well. I mean, Erebor too. I would still back them to be victorious over here just because of the Dragon Slayers and the Blacklocks, but they've taken a lot of losses for their victory. And the battle is far from over. Going on in the background there, routing Orc Archers, what a surprise. And the Dwarves still have their catapult as well. Could still be a very key part of this battle. And over here, so yeah, the Numenorians at this point, they have been engaged in melee. The Dwarves saw what was the true threat here, pushing through with the Guards of Khazad-dûm and the hammers to try and kill them off. And then, very much backs to the walls, the Temple Executioners, forced up against the cliffside, and they are also going to be finished off. Temple Executioners, of course, such a strong unit, even stronger when they have their armour upgrades. But there's only so much you can ask them to do. They're up against some of the best units Khazad-dûm can field, as well as some very solid Dalian units. Uruk-hai crossbows getting into melee as well, pulling out their Uruk-hai machetes. What are those Numenorian Shadow Guard going to do? Very stretched engagement so far, actually. Interestingly enough. There was still defenders all the way back down here. The defenders could technically counter-attack as well to get in behind Erebor. I don't know though, it's going to be very, very close indeed. I mean, this does come down to if the attackers can use their ranged power to its full potential, they should win. But if it comes down to just a slog in melee, the units the defenders have left are so strong. There's a lot of armour piercing in there as well. Girian's Paladins, Nazkai, Mithril Guard. The Mithril Guard really can't afford to just sit there though while they get pelted by Ferodrum Javelins. Gonna just retreat out of the way there. A lot of elite units. It's not often you get to see 2 units of Girian's Paladins, 2 units of Nazkai. I think those Dalian Royal Guard are out of ammunition. I mean, we saw previously how good the Dalian Royal Guard can be in melee. The heroes of that Battle of Rivendell, where they were the last ones left. Some perpetually routing units also stuck in the town centre, which actually, if the attackers do go through them, they will knock them back into being available for the defenders to use, although having said that, they'll just be killed almost as quickly as they are unglitched. So, I think this engagement down here is done. It is. There goes the Mordor General. Just as I was about to head back over there, but yeah, I mean, Erebor don't have much left. Mordor's General, meanwhile, has been finished off. Lined up against the wall and stabbed. And the Temple Executioners are gone. So that does mean that they also have these units to call upon the defenders, whether they want to retreat them to the town centre that way, or it looks as though that they are planning on attacking the rear of what's left of Erebor and Mordor, although what's left of Mordor I think consists of just this one unit of Shadow Guard. Still, a unit of Rangers can do a lot. Are they going to retreat or are they going to attack? That Dwarven Catapult has turned around. It looks almost like it's sunk into the floor. I hope for their sake that that is not what's happened. Yeah, it looks like they're going to retreat. I mean, yeah, going across here while the catapult's pelting you is probably not the best idea. Meanwhile, counter-attack out here, which, yeah, I mean, the defenders need to make this all about melee power, because if they just sit back and allow all of these archers to do their thing, it's going to be bad for them. So some very depleted Earls, and also the Morikwendi bows pulling out their Elven blades to get into melee, also the Guards of Orthanc. So just sending forward none of their really elite stuff yet, but just letting the attackers know they're not just going to be allowed to shoot their arrows into unmoving units. Variag Bowmen. I mean, again, the Variag Bowmen are not the most damaging unit, but if they're allowed to just sort of shoot unmolested into all of these units for a long period of time, they will still do the damage that the attackers need. But of course, something like the Franadine Rangers is going to be much more worrying for the defenders. This is a pretty key unit as well, I've just noticed, come into view. The Nurad Warchief Retainers, of course, multiple HP, Halberdiers with their phalanx, and considering the heavily armoured nature of most of the defenders, if they get into a good position and they're supported properly, they could be match winners here, especially when used in conjunction with all of these archers, which you'll see how well that goes. There's also the Variag Cataphracts, which actually at this point in the battle looking like a pretty good addition, because there's not really much left which can do. I mean, there are still pikes in here, which if they're not careful, if they bang into the pikes, they'll stop routing because they're in the town centre, and then that'll be very bad for cavalry, of course. I mean, having said that, there's not really a great deal that could kill Variag Cataphracts quickly. Neither could the Cataphracts get really clean charges off though, so I mean, we'll see. While the Mithril Guard counter-attacking down here with the support of the Girians Paladins, going downhill into the Dragon Slayers, the Ironfoot Crossbows and the Blacklock Engineers. There's not much left of Erebor, and I think sensing that weakness, the defenders are going to try and finish them off first. And there's a lot of AP in here. Certainly the Ironfoot Crossbows are going to find themselves hideously outmatched by Mithril Guard and Girians Paladins. Mithril Guard and Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin, however, very similar units to one another. What's going on here with these units? Still not ready to sort of... No, they are going to counter-attack into the rear. And I do think that is now the right... Oh dear. We've seen it happen live. It's a disaster is what it is. There's the other one down there as well. You can see him right at the bottom. It's always such a disaster when that happens, but anyone who's played Medieval 2 knows you don't want your artillery near cliffs, otherwise you're inviting that to happen. And that means the Dwarven Catapult is now gone. More to the point, its crew is also a sitting duck for this sort of counter-attack that Dale and the Dwarves are mounting. The Uruk-hai Crossbows are actually pursuing the Númenórean Shadow Guard, trying to stop them from using their projectiles as well. Blacklock Engineers, they actually have a very nice shot. Again, just a couple of good volleys from the Blacklock Engineers could make all the difference here. Even Mithril Guard and Girians Paladins are going to take a good amount of damage from the mighty Blacklocks, but they lost their bottle. No. They could have got a good volley off, but now they're going to run, and they're not going to have the chance to get a volley off now. There's nowhere to run now. There's units behind you. And now the Girians Paladins are going to relentlessly pursue you. There's not going to be enough time to turn around and shoot now because of how slowly crossbows fire. Yeah, he lost his nerve there, the Dwarven player. And that's going to cost him pretty dearly because the Girians Paladins get a downhill charge. They're going to swing those great maces. And now they're shooting the wrong unit entirely. What are they doing? Shooting Barding Herd when you've got Girians Paladins and Mithril Guard on offer? Yeah, that's poor decision making there. Meanwhile, over on this side, doing the right thing again. All of those Candish halberds though, the Nurad halberds and the Warchief Retainers, could be game changers here. Armour piercing, the phalanx. We shall see. But the Dalian Royal Guard and the Girians Paladins combining with the Nazkai on the front line, it's a very, very difficult front line to kill off. Brotherhood Shadowblades waiting in the wings. Trollshaw Axe Throwers also moving forwards. I mean, it's going to be a very grindy fight. There goes King Dane. And I think, actually, that's the Dwarven player maybe admitting defeat. Yeah. I mean, there isn't really anything left of the Dwarves, so it doesn't really matter that he's admitted defeat. It was literally just the Catapult crew. And the Catapult crew wouldn't have been able to get any kills against Khazad-dûm Reclaimers or Dalian Spears. Uruk-hai Crossbows are over here, and this is also going to be the end of Mordor. So the Númenórean Shadow Guard being smashed into the ground by the Girians Paladins. So this means that there's going to be no enemies on this side of Moria, which is going to allow the defenders to focus entirely on one choke point, which is going to suit them down to the ground. With all of these elite units in a single narrow choke point, it's going to be very, very difficult for the attackers to make that work. They're going to have to use their javelins and their halberds to their full effect if they want to win this now. And a savage fight so far has been, again, with the scale of destruction in the early game, things have slowed down a little bit now with all these elite units fighting one another. Mordor also gone, so that leaves us with just this choke point over here. Some Nurad halberds pushing through the line, which I don't think you really want to be trying to push with halberds per se. Axe throwers trading blows back and forth. There goes the Dalian general amongst the Barrow Wights. The Dalians trying to hold on resolutely so far, but I don't know. There's a lot of units. The Witch Realm Enslavers are on the front line now as well. The Witches are here, they're reloading. That's a menacing sight. If they can get a good volley off, that could be the end. That wasn't a shot at all though. Very well though. Here come the Variag Cataracts. They're going to try and push their way through. They could try and do that now. Variag Cataracts, of course, one of the tankiest units of knights in the game. Not quite up to the same level as Knights of Illuminas or Carmel's Dragon Knights, but not far away. Very heavily armoured horses, and they themselves also wearing that thick lamella. Yeah, they are going to try and force their way through. The Variag Bowmen as well. This needs a response from the defenders. If they just sit here and let this happen, they are going to be overrun. The cavalry spazzing out a little bit there. A few of the horsemen getting through now, as well as some of the Variag Bowmen, but well, there goes the Rudauer general. Variag Bowmen maybe not the unit they wanted to get through first, because Nazkai are there to meet them. Here come the Barding Herd. That is a shot from the Witches though, killing off a chunk of that unit of Barding Herd there. There goes the Angmar general as well. So all of a sudden, generals being lost. I believe that the Khandish general was also a part of this unit of cataphracts. And he's going to be used in as aggressive a manner as this. And here comes also the... still a few units in reserve. But I mean, at this point, how is there so long left in this fight when pretty much all of the attacking forces are being committed forward? Is it really going to take them that long to kill off the Nurad War Chief retainers? Back go the cataphracts at this point. The Brotherhood Shadowblades trying to sort of reposition themselves. Up comes another unit of Variag Bowmen, which I think is basically all they have in reserve now. There's one Son of the Fallen. Still the Dalian Royal Guard fighting on the front line again. They have... recently the Dalian Royal Guard have certainly proven their stock in melee. They really have done a fantastic job whenever they've been in melee, in addition to the range damage they can do. Reforged Javelins trying to throw more of their jabbies. There's only 26 of them left. 25 of them now. Which is a shame for Rudauer, because in melee they can be very useful as well. The Witches must be out of ammunition because they're being committed into melee. They're certainly not as strong as the Nazgul, but still they can certainly make something happen in melee. And it looks as though the Khand push has not gone as well as they wanted it to. So I made a small cut there, purely because I knew that that fight was going to grind on for a little bit. But I've rejoined now because the attackers are being pushed back by the defenders. The Nurad War Chief retainers are here on the front line, such a good unit, but I do feel as though, more and more, as though the defenders are going to be victorious here, purely because the attackers just don't have the quality in melee to overcome them. I mean, the Blackshot Dragon Slayers are now in melee. The Nazkai, the Girians Paladins, the Mithril Guard. There's not many defenders left. There's also some Hammers of Gundabad on the way forward. But if you have a look at the attackers, not many Barrow Wights. The Witches are here, but not in great numbers. The Shadowblades, they have their throwing daggers. They're going to try and do some damage there. They may be able to get a few more kills, but you can see here Rangers in melee, Trollshaw Axe Throwers in melee. The one unit of genuine quality they have left are the War Chief retainers. Again, Variag Bowmen for Rodram Javelins. Not really the heroes that they need at this point. Whatever happens to those cataphracts, they're down there. Yeah, I don't know, I feel as though... Ooh, I'm bumped up into the ceiling once again. I just don't feel as though the attackers have got what they need left. I mean, there's a few black bolts as well, but again, only 5. The units of quality they have left outside of the War Chief retainers, and even then, they're starting to take losses as well. There's only 30 of them remaining as the defenders continue their counter-attack. The Shadow Blades are coming in, and the Shadow Blades are not bad in melee either, but again, it's not really the kind of quality that's needed. They'd have needed something really, really powerful to turn this around, I feel like. I mean, they technically have a unit of knights. But, I mean, what are they going to do? Wait for their infantry to be exhausted and then try to cycle charge them to death? I don't think that's going to work out, purely because on every charge they're going to take losses in their cavalry units. And actually, having a look at this, there's still 1st Legion pikemen in there. Depleted as they may be, any number of pikes are too many pikes for a cavalry unit. Well, there goes the Dwarven General. Guards of Khazad-dûm in there, 18 of them. Of course, 3 hit points. Really sets them apart from the other sword and board units in the game. Most certainly the strongest. Here come the Variag Bowmen again. They've still got their bows out, so they probably do still have a bit of ammunition. There are the Reforged Javelins. They're trying to kill off the pikemen. But you can see that the pikemen are made of stern stuff. Even when taking javelin fire, able to withstand it to an extent. Forward come the Cataphracts once again. Just sort of switching sides. Variag Bowmen being committed to melee. They're going to try and push their way through, I think, the Cataphracts, but this is more of a sort of a last roll of the dice than a sort of genuine tactic, I feel like. See the big swords of the Blackshot Dragon Slayers. Again, I'm not really sure what to make of the big, like, berserk style swords that the Blackshot Dragon Slayers have, but at least it makes it easy to see where they are. I do, however, approve of the big maces the Girian's Paladins have. Yeah, there's not many War Chief retainers left at this point. And again, the Cataphracts are just going to get stuck in melee, and as soon as they do, they're going to take tons of damage from a lot of these units, especially the Nazkai and the Girian's Paladins, a lot of AP damage being dealt by them. And then just in behind, there's a few units that are perpetually routing. 1st Legion Pikes just sort of holding position. Granadine Rangers defeat is a distinct possibility, but it is going to come down to the wire once again. It's going to be a very close fight in terms of manpower, but ultimately it has been a matter of quality as we've come to the end. That slaughter that we saw down there, ultimately I think the attackers just lost too much in the end. I feel as though they initially hesitated before fully committing forward. If they just dispensed with messing around and fully committed forward immediately, I do kind of feel as though they would have had more success in this fight. They would have had more left to try and deal with these really elite units in the town centre. As it was, though, it was always going to be hard, I think, for Erebor and Mordor on the other side as well, because actually the defenders did stack up a lot of units against them, a lot of elite units as well. So I feel as though for Erebor and Mordor it was always going to be a case of we just need to kill as many as we're able and be happy with that. It is going to come down to fine margins once again. I think Variag Bowmen and Variag Cataphracts retreating, seeing that their line is collapsing. The Brotherhood Shadowblades, only 5 of them left. You can see they're capable of doing a lot of damage, but they don't really have a lot of staying power in a really grindy engagement like this, as one of them is about to get bisected by that Dragon Slayer. Guards of Khazad-dûm pushing forward. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers as well with their 2-handed axes. Girian's Paladins, yeah, this is very much the end. I mean, the Trollshire Axe Throwers trying to do what they can. The Ferodrum Javelins being engaged in melee. Good in melee, actually. Armour piercing as well, but... well, I mean, having a look at this, I guess it's not impossible. I mean, these Trollshire Axe Throwers and Ferodrum Javelins doing some good damage. Variag Bowmen also firing away. Now that the infantry's out of the way, those Trollshire Axe Throwers are actually doing a lot of damage, although now that they're being engaged in melee, they're going to rout very quickly, you'd imagine. I mean, they need to hope that they can kill off enough that they can charge them to death with the Cataphracts, I suppose. that's all that remains for them. I mean, these Troll axe throwers, disciplined in the way that they're holding their ranks, I suppose, while they're slowly being chopped down by Mithril Guard. He's still impetuous. Forward come the very Cataphracts now. They're going to try and push their way through. Not the best charge. There is the General wielding that glaive. For Rodram Javelin, still 7 of them remaining. Still trying to use those projectiles to their best ability. A valiant last stand this by Rudar, but now you can see they have been fully engaged in melee. And as a melee unit, they really don't stand a chance against the mighty Nazkai. The folk of the ring. What are they going to do? Variag Cataphracts. Going to charge. Again, not the worst charge. Killing off quite a few of those Girian's Paladins, actually, and that is the benefit to having a unit of Knights like this. Their charge, if you can get it going, is devastating. Still some support from those Variag Bowmen down the hill as well, and I mean, at this point, it's not impossible the attackers win this. Just by virtue of their cavalry. I mean, there are still those pikes there, but there's only 8 of them. A charge from Knights is enough to wipe out a unit of 8. Rudar have been completely destroyed at this point. Well, there's still a couple of Nurad Warchief retainers as well, but at this point, they need to hope that the Nazkai and Girian's Paladins can kill off the Cataphracts quickly enough that they lose that devastating charge, because if they don't, they're actually in trouble. Forward come the pikemen. There's only 8 of them, but you can see that several of those Cataphracts did die. And this is super close all of a sudden. The Variag Bowmen still have those arrows that they can utilise. They're going to just retreat down the hill a little bit. What the defenders need to do at this point is keep a tight formation, stay together. Because if they just charge down the hill one by one, the Cataphracts will be able to knock them down like dominoes. There's still a single War Chief retainer over here, but he is engaged with, again, very depleted units as well. 3rd Legion, Guards of Khazad-dûm, Sons of the Fallen, Blackshot Dragon Slayers are over there. So I feel as though this is going to be a bit of a game of cat and mouse at this stage, because there's still a fair amount of frames left to go. And I feel as though the Khandish player is not going to want to send his Cataphracts into the Lion's Jaws too easily, but neither of the defenders are going to want to charge back down the hill. So I think maybe it's time for a bit of ×2 action. War Chief Retainers, are they finally going to be killed off? The last one. I mean, he could potentially hold on long enough for the... there's one Rodram Javelin left alive. And he's wisely going after the pikes. If they do kill the pikes, that's the main threat dealt with. Although inside the town centre, if you sort of put all of your units within the Morroquendi pikes, if those Morroquendi pikes then get touched by an enemy unit, they will return from routing because they're in the town centre. Oh, excuse me. It's the end of the War Chief Retainers. Variag Bowmen are going to get in position, and I would assume that they're going to try and shoot the 1st Legion. Which again is the best thing they can do, although they are only basic archers. And again, they kind of lost their bottle a little bit there, because there's this Son of the Fallen, singular, who's just sort of poking away at them. I feel as though the thing to do here for the Khandish player is just to charge. Go in there. Because you could kill 7 1st Legion on a charge. It's very risky, but I feel as though you're not really going to get much change off the defenders here. They're obviously going to position themselves in such a way that you can't just charge into them for free. The squishier units at any rate, Nazkai, so... I mean, technically speaking, the defenders are ahead. They do still have more of their army left. But in terms of overall numbers, it's very, very even. Might even be time for ×6 speed. You rarely see ×6 speed in a part of the video that I actually show. Ooh. They're going to charge into melee here and try to kill the 1st Legion pikes off. I mean, the Variag Bowmen don't stand a huge chance against that sort of thing, especially seeing as the Variag Cataphracts are actually over here. Are they going to rear charge them? I think they are. A good move.
If we remain true and
Lance is down. First Legion Pikes, they took a few losses there, but only one of them left alive from that charge, actually. That could end up being a worthwhile sacrifice, but the Variag Bowmen... Again, it's only Uruk-hai crossbows are actually up against as well, although very depleted units. At this stage in the game, a single Son of the Fallen could be what makes the difference, after all. Hell, a single Variag Bowman could be what makes the difference. I don't know, I think what the defenders are trying to do, you can see the Girian's Paladins, they are hiding behind the Morroquendi Pikes, and they're hoping that the Morroquendi Pikes will return. And you can see that the Variag Cataphracts are real reluctant to charge in there. They're going to charge in there and save what remains of their Variag Bowmen. And again, to think that I was a little bit iffy on the inclusion of a unit of cavalry like this. The Variag Cataphracts could be what ultimately ends up winning the attackers the fight. They are going to charge in there too. Those Dalian Spearmen didn't return from routing either. So maybe they are just fully bugged. Maybe the Morroquendi Pikes won't return either. Couple more Cataphracts falling away. Still 9 Variag Cataphracts to try and finish off. Can the Girian's Paladins do it? I mean, at this point it is... I'm surprised it's not 100 to 100, to be quite frank. In comes the charge again. I think they're trying to use the routing units as a bit of a shield to sort of absorb the charge. And that is having some of the desired effect. I mean, to be quite frank, this is a bug anyway, so the defenders should have access to these two units regardless. So using them as something to break up the charge makes a great deal of sense. That would be what spears and pikes would be used for in this situation anyway, but there's only 8 Nazkai, 3 Blackshot Dragon Slayers and a few Girian's Paladins. If they all die, the announcer's going to go crazy as the Cataphracts keep buzzing in and out of here. But if they all die, that's it, because these units are routing. So the Cataphracts, to be quite frank, if the Cataphracts are used correctly, they should win this fight. They can't. But they're staying in melee for a little bit too long each time. There's only 6 of them left. They have a good opportunity here. The Girian's Paladins are wide open for a charge. They did get their Lancers down despite being so close as well, although they were close enough where the charge wasn't great. A couple of them died. 2 Girian's Paladins for 1 Cataphract, but at this point each Cataphract is so precious to the attackers. I mean, if we count these Dalian Spearmen and Morroquendi Pikes as just not being on the field, this technically is even closer than the Rivendell fight, which is crazy. Just 5 Cataphracts remaining, 6 Nazkai and 1 Blackshot Dragon Slayer, so the differential is essentially 2 units at this point. But I mean, these are knights, the kings of the battlefield, the most devastating units outside of the Rangers and the Blacklocks. In terms of sheer power, nothing beats a knight. Ooh, and they got caught there on the Blackshot Dragon Slayer. He got a swing, but he didn't get a kill. The Nazkai trying to seek shelter in and amongst the Spearman. Dalian Spearmen routing still, but still being used as human shields. The Nazkai going to get a charge there, and that should be enough to kill off at least one more unit model you would expect. The Nazkai deal so much damage, they do, and the Dalian Spearmen have returned from routing. I'm not sure what knocks them out of their perpetual routing, but that's huge. I mean, to be fair, just a frontal charge from the Cataphracts might still be enough to rout them, because there's only 13 of them, they've routed before, and they're not an elite unit by any means, but that's huge. That could be what swings the fight, ultimately. Well, this is risky, because they could end up bringing the Morroquendi Pikes back, which if they return from routing when the Cataphracts are in them, that's it for them. Fortunately for them, they didn't. Excuse me. 6 Nazkai, 13 Dalian Spearmen. I think with the return of those Dalian Spearmen, I think that's the game changer. I think the defenders will go on to win this now. There's still a Blackshot Dragon Slayer left. You can see what the defenders want. The defenders want that to happen to the Morriquendi pikes, because that really is game over if that happens, because the pikes, there'll be no way that the Cataphracts can get a good charge off. Only 4 Nazkai. The best thing the defenders can do is just stay in and amongst the Morriquendi pikes, because even if they don't return, they can still act as those human shields, or elven shields, I should say. This is a bonkers fight though. In come the Variag Cataphracts, not a great charge though. They sort of just ambled up to what remains of the Nazkai. In come the spears. They were fortunate that they didn't take any losses there. We're in the final 1,000 frames. Could still go either way, because one decisive charge from the Cataphracts could end the battle in favour of the attackers. But if they can't get that, the defenders win. Another Morriquendi pike getting charged, and they're back. Yeah, they got knocked back into existence, as it were. They stopped routing, and that's the end. There's no way that the Cataphracts win this now. Again, it's a really weird bug, and we've never seen it in a more important situation than this, where the units that routed for the defenders come back to the town centre and then just sit there routing for all eternity until they get attacked in melee in some specific way. And so it's turned out to be here, because now with the Dalian Spearmen and the Morriquendi pikes returning, that's going to be the end. And I think the Khandish player at this point realises that, because the pikes are of course going to be able to kill them off. The Khandish general is the only one left alive. He actually kills off a pikeman as well. And I think he's just going to keep himself in melee at this point, seeing that all hope is lost. But still, barely 20 defenders left standing at the end. Not quite as close as the Rivendell one, but I think actually this one is more remarkable, just because the Rivendell siege only had 5 players, this one had 8. What a battle. What a swan song for .96. 100 to 100. Can't ask for more than that. So yeah, this is the perfect battle to end .96 on. Such a close fight. Again, there's some weird bugginess with the routing in the town centres, but that's been a thing for Medieval 2 ever since it was a thing. Very well played, and big thank you to Captain Gervais for sending this one in to me. A fantastic farewell to .96, as I said. Good spread. I mean, the Khandish player may have got the least amount of kills, but again, he was the one that was committed towards the end, when it was really only really elite small units that were left, and of course he nearly pulled it out of the bag for his team. But ultimately the return of those pikes made it impossible for him, but he still did very well, the Khandish player. Angmar getting the most kills, unsurprising considering how well the Witches were used. Erebor and Rudau doing okay. Mordor had a bit of a tough time of it, but they still did their job. Yeah, Khazad-dûm getting a lot of kills, Dale getting a lot of kills, Isengard being the support, the more numerous of the factions, if only just. Having a look at what did the damage, what was the MVPs for Khazad-dûm. Guards of Khazad-dûm doing very, very well, over 400 kills. All melee kills, of course, which makes it all the more impressive. A lot of units getting over 200, 381 on those first Legion pikes as well, so as you would expect, the Dwarven infantry standing firm and resolute in the face of a very numerically superior force. But yeah, big thank you to Captain Gervais. This is going to be the last that we see of .96, so bid it farewell, because it's been good to us, all things considered. Yeah, and this was the perfect battle to send it off with, really. But soon, I don't really know when it's going to come out. It's possible that when this is already posted up on YouTube, to be fair, that .97 may already be out, but as of recording it obviously isn't. I don't really know when it's going to come out either, but I just know that it's going to be very soon. So of course this means that a load of new things to talk about, a lot of new battles, a lot of new maps. Also, I'm going to be restarting the faction showcases again, albeit I think they're going to be in a slightly shorter format than they were previously, more of sort of an update. There will of course be a couple of new factions as well, but I'm sort of working on a new format for the faction overviews. There may be the return of top 10s and top 5s as well after a little while, after everyone's sort of bedded in on .97 and is a little bit more used to what the meta is. I think I'll be doing a couple of those as well. And also a potential historical series that I'm going to be doing alongside J-Monster. I don't really know how that's going to work with regards to, how often it's going to be, but that is something that we both want to do. So that's something else I'm looking forward to as well. So big thank you to Captain Gervais, as always. I hope you enjoyed this. you know, again, say goodbye to 0.96 because this is the end of it, and I hope you will join me with whatever is next, which will of course be something on 0.97.